Good morning, friends. Welcome again to my YouTube channel where I share interesting ideas and novel ways to do things. This is the second part of a two-part video. The first part, I made a drive system to drive a cube, where you drive it from kitty corner on a cube to make a three-cornered bowl, or in this case, to make this lotus flower project. So I'm going to just go through the process here and do sections and then talk about why I made these decisions and show you some different ways to do things, and you'll find it quite interesting. So I'll just go over to the lathe and get started. I've already got it set up there. Okay, I think I'm ready to start with a little bit of trepidation when you turn something on that's shaped like this, but one thing that's a must is, of course, a decent face shield, and I'm just actually using these tight-fitting gloves also. Just seems to give a little bit of protection to your bare flesh there. So, and you'll notice this it doesn't run particularly true, and the reason for that is homemade lathe, my tailstock doesn't perfectly line up with the headstock when I get this distance away here. And I've been thinking about it and have come up with some ways to correct that, but I'm still able to turn this project on here. So as this comes on, we're going to be lathing right in the center here, and I'm just going to use a bowl gouge. I'll do a little bit and then shut it off and lathe a little bit more, and then come up with some, tell you a few things to watch out for and things to do there. So let's just get started here. Face shield. I'm running about 1700 RPM. You need to go fairly quickly, and I'm just going to use a bowl gouge here. May not be the best tool to use, but hopefully it'll work okay. Back and forth, and then okay, you can see this taking shape here. In the center here, I'm all the way right down to, so it's all the way around, and then the points here come out. So it's just a matter of keep coming back on the points, getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So it actually ends up to be smaller than this distance across here, because you're going to keep working that way. And you have to make some decisions here, and of what curve to use here. Now this part over here is going to be the top where you see it, and then this will be the bottom where it goes onto the sits on the table or whatever you put it on. What I found, it looks the nicest if you have a steeper smaller radius on the top here and a shallower radius on the bottom. I made one and I'll show it to you in a bit here. once I do a little bit more lathing, where the bottom was quite sharp and the top was quite flat. It doesn't look quite as good. So anyway, I'm just going to shut this off and do some lathing here, and then I'll come back and check it again. Okay, I've got that pretty much lathed to as far as where I'm finding it pleasing for me anyway. I'm kind of nervous always doing lathe work while you're watching me, because I'm just an amateur and maybe I don't do things quite right, but I come up with a good project there. Anyway, let's just take a look at this. It's one of the first, not the first one I made, but when I started figuring, well, maybe I could change the curves of these parts here. Change this. This one is quite flat on the top, and then the bottom is quite a lot smaller diameter. So when it sits up, and then this is flatter. You may like that idea, but I didn't think it looked quite as good as the other one did. And I was experimenting here too, where I put black on these edges and then gold on the inside, and it actually looked quite good with a tea light in there. And these are the ones that I think that maybe look a little better. The top is a much steeper, smaller diameter, as you might say, and then the bottom is a shallower. So I've tried to do the same on this one that's on the lathe right now. And it seems to be that when you're doing this, it comes out pretty good, the curve. It just seems to, you just seem to naturally go around in it, and it comes out okay. Now, and what I did here is I took a compass, and kind of a poor compass, but it's compass dividers, and I taped a thing on there. And you can take it off, but I found that the point, I put the point there, and I just put a line around there to see how I was doing. And you could actually see there, we can see the line there now. You could do that, you know, just to make sure you've got it. But I found it just works by eye for some reason. It just kind of comes out well. And so when you're lathing here with when you come down into the center, you're lathing in this way. As you come down into it where it meets the other side, you got to roll your tool over, roll it over. Otherwise, you come along here and you get a catch on here. And so I did that mostly with a bowl gouge, and then I finished it up with a spindle gouge, being very careful, keeping it flat. And then that goes right down into the point there quite well if it's rolled over. You come with a relatively smooth surface there. So this will need sanded, and I usually will sand it right now a bit. So maybe we should just do a little bit of sanding here first. I'll just move this over so you can see down into the gap there, into that gap part there. So you see that you have to bring your tool in. You bring your tool in and then roll it over to get right down into there. And roll it in so you don't get a catch there. Okay. We don't have to sand this right now because we're going to mount this. This has to be mounted into the chuck again. So maybe we should do that. Like I said, this is going to be the top. This will be your top, and this is where we're going to mount the chuck. So what we're going to have to do is come over to here and lay this down, and we can actually start shaping the inside here a bit too, and get it to a point where our chuck will put on here. So I'll get set up and do that and show you how that goes. Okay, I've mounted the tool rest over a little farther, and I just started this out a little bit. So we're just going to keep whittling away in here till we get it down to a place where we can use our calipers and get it the right diameter to fit the chuck. So I'll just do a little just a little tiny bit here, and then shut the camera off, and I'll get it a little farther. You got to be careful when you have the three-sided thing. It's going to vibrate and various things there. The important thing is to have sharp tool and don't go too fast. And I'll check my diameter here with calipers. I'll have to get my calipers and set them up. So anyway, I'll just keep working away this. I'm going to try to get this down here to match this quite a ways. Anyway, I'll just continue working here. Yeah, what I've done so far is I've laid this down to a point, and then laid the part here that my calipers will just slide on. That way I'm down to the chuck diameter that I'm going to use. I'm going to use this one because it's a little deep, got a little extra length here, and so that's already kind of established. It gives me a point, and then as I'm working here, I know I can only go down to that depth there. So that's good to set up, you know, fairly soon, and we may be able to get this in quite a ways yet for our chuck there. Yeah, I kind of made a mistake here. This is going to be the bottom, and this will be the top. So your chuck, when you mount it on, it actually goes to the bottom. So I made these in reverse. I just wasn't, those curves, I wasn't quite thinking. So it's going to look a little, it's going to have a steeper bottom that goes on the table and shallower at the top. But variety is good. So anyway, it'll all work out. I was thinking when I was doing that, I thought, oh, how's that going to work? But anyway, it's not going to work, but it'll work in reverse. So I'll just continue lathing here a little bit and show you what it looks like before we mount our chuck onto there. Okay, I've pretty much got this down in here as far as I want. I'm leaving a little extra. This is a little thicker than what you want in the end. But in the end, you're going to take this down once it's turned over, and you'll finish this side. But I've got the part where my chuck is going to go on. It's seems real good there, and I've made a line. It's going to butt up to right here, and then this has to be cut off right there. Now, I could use a parting tool in here, and it'll just about clear. You get this, I've got it in about as far as I could if I was going to use a parting tool here without it hitting the tips here. I'd have to, but anyway, I'm just going to lay this down here just as it is here with a tool and get it down, and then get it down farther and take it off there. So I'll go ahead and do that and then show it to you here in a second here. Okay, you can see what I did here. I didn't want to use a parting tool because I didn't want it, a catch or something like that, and I'm pretty close to here. So I've just taken my lathe tool and laid this down to a fairly small diameter there. And I mounted the tool rest in there so I got good support. So it's good to be very cautious and careful when you're doing this. You go to all this work setting this all up, and you've done some fairly technical work, you might say, with these points and all that sort of stuff. You don't want to give a catch and fly off there. So I'm just going to saw this off here with a little saw, and then I can remount it there. Not exactly lathing, but I figure this is the safest way to do this. Just cut that off. Oops, I just about got my corner there. You don't want to get the corner. That should be good. Move this out of the way. Take that off, and I can just break that off. Okay, so that's what it looks like. So now we're going to mount that in a chuck. Okay, you can see it. It's mounted to the chuck on this side. Now I'm going to lay this side, and I'll lay this to a finished state. My lathe doesn't line up perfectly, so it's you should use to start this out. It'd be a good idea to support it with your live center there. I've done them without this, but it turns not too bad. So I'm going to just leave this on a little bit there and go ahead and start lathing this, and I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. You can see here I've laid the whole bunch of that out using the tailstock for support, especially on your manufactured lathes where it lines up perfectly. It's the way to go. Even with this, it's not too bad, just a little bit off, but I'm supported well with the chuck here. And you can be, with this on here, you can be very aggressive and get the chips just flying everywhere. And so what I'm going to do, I've started lathing this down here a bit. I'm just going to keep on lathing it because it's supported here. It's not going to fly off. Before, when I just had this thing stuck on here, and the tailstock there, if it got off and broke off, then the whole project would go flying, and you don't want that to happen. But there's no real danger with this now. So I'll just go ahead and lay this off, and then we'll just continue shaping that surface there. Too bad I was half asleep this morning, and the one nearest the lathe is the headstock is going to be the top, and the one close to the tailstock is going to be the bottom. So I've got it reversed. So I've got one that is shallow on the top and steeper on the bottom. But you can adjust it however you want. You can have both of them the same. That's of course the easiest way to do it. Anyway, I'll just continue to get this off and get that off, and then we'll show you what it looks like then. Okay, you can see that I've got that down quite a ways. I could almost probably break it off, but I'm going to just take this spindle gouge like a knife and just go in there and slice that in a little bit, make it real sharp, and then I can just break it off. So we'll see if that works. There we go. So I'll just move this out of the way, and I came right down there, and I just pull that right off. So now we'll set up our tool rest here and start lathing like this, and then pop our hole in for the T-light, and we'll then. These surfaces here, you want to leave it a little thicker than maybe what you intended, because time we sand on this side, it's going to get a little bit thinner anyway. So leave it a little thicker for sanding. That one that I made that I showed you there, that was flatter on the top, it got too thin. I didn't leave it thick enough. So I'm just going to make one slight cut off of there. You don't want to go any thinner than that. That's could have left that a little thicker actually. Okay, so next step, I'm just going to pop that hole in there for the that little T-light. And then we have to sand this and sand this. And we'll do the bottom. It's actually a very quick project to make. When you drill your hole, I go about to the depth of the Forester bit there. Okay, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so now we're going to go through a sanding process, and I'm going to show you how we're going to mount that to do the other side, as well as a couple other tricks that I've come up with. Okay, sanding. Well, that's the part that some of us don't like, because it takes a little time to get a good finish and it's dusty, but we use respirators and dust collectors and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd show you some of the things that I have here for sanding. You can go back in my videos and you can see how I make all these things, and might be, if you're interested, take a look at those. You might come up with something that you like, and I've got all kinds of stuff here today. Okay, when we sand this part here, you don't want to use sandpaper on your fingers, because you're going to get whacked. So you should always use a sanding pad on a drill or whatever you have there. And these are ones that I make. I made a variety of them. Some of them have the wood and then foam on there. Some of them have Velcro pad on there, and you buy Velcro sandpaper and put that on there. Some of mine don't have anything on there, like this one here. Let's just say it's just flat on the side. I don't have anything on that one. But what I use on a lot of these is I take carpet tape. Carpet tape is sticky on both sides, and this is some real heavy duty stuff that's actually got a fabric in there. And then I just take, I made this little punch here, and I can just put that on there, And I punch these out. And I've got a little sticky pad, and it costs next to nothing to make those things. And then another thing is you can get these boxes of made by Klingspor from Stockroom Supply. You can get a 30-pound box, all kinds of grits, and they're fabric backed, and they're way better than anything you can buy. So if I take that, and there's my carpet tape, and I'm just going to pop out another one of those. I've never ever bought these little discs here. I just make them my own for a fraction of the cost of buying them. So now I can just take this sticky fabric tape, stick that onto there, and sometimes it's a little challenge to get the paper off of there. So all I do is take that little paper off there. I won't waste your time doing that, and then I just pop that on, and you got a pad that goes on there, and it sticks on there. It's fantastic, and you got way better sandpaper than you can buy. And to get that off, I just take a piece of wood, run it on there, heat it up a little bit, and you can peel it off and put another piece in. And another thing I've got here today is this is just a sticky back pad that I've got a whole bunch of them that I picked up. And that's already got the stickiness on there. On this particular one here, just some scrap stuff that you can come out, so that's one way to do it. And of course, the other stuff is commercial stuff that you buy, but it was cheap for a while, and now it's quite expensive, so it's nice to use. It's you don't have any mess, but I'm into cost. You can make one of these for a couple pennies instead of 25 cents. I'm all for it. So there's a Velcro patched one, and here's one that I've got Velcro on. I'll just pop that on there, and I'm ready to go. So I've got several different types here, and you need to pick one that is going to go into sand these surfaces here. This is quite easy to get to there. I've got another one here. Here's one that I've got I used a long thing in there, and so that will work good for getting into the side here, so your drill is free of the little points there. Okay, so I'm just going to set up and go ahead and sand this up, and we'll be ready to do the next stage here. Thought I'd show you my system for collecting the dust using a dust collector. This is a standalone dust collector that I have, a small one just for the lathe. I have a bigger one with piping, but it's outside, so rather than take the heat outside, I can just recirculate it in here in most cases. Because when you're sanding it, you have to have your dust collector on for a considerable length of time. Where the other one, just running a machine momentarily, it doesn't affect the heating of the shop here, and I don't have that dust and noise in here. Anyway, I'm just going to fly at this and get this sanded up, ready for the next step here, which is very, very important. Okay, I've got my sanding done, and I've gone down to about 320, I believe. Maybe it was with the sanding disc. This is one of those ones that come from that box with all those ends on here. And the nice part, why I find these so superior, is that when they're loaded up with sandpaper, you can go and within seconds you can clean that out as good as can be. And you got a brand new, looks brand new again. Okay, so I've got this, and this actually, like I said, leave this a little thicker than you think. I shouldn't have taken that last cut because it got a little thinner than I desired there. So anyway, but I just wanted to show you there. Now, we're going to mount this on this side, turn this side, and we've got the hole in the center there for the tea light. So we don't want to, when we laid the bottom here, you don't want to cut through there, which is usually not too much of a problem there. But this is a way that you can figure it out. What I've done is take a piece of wood, and I've got a bicycle spoke here from my motorbike actually. I bent the end over, and can put that piece of board on there so it goes up against all the things. And you could mark that or just hold your finger on it, okay? And that's how far down that is. Okay, so now I'm going to stick this on here and take my spoke onto the outside. Now you can't see what I'm doing there, but you can see the principle. And I'm going to mark on this side where the bottom is. Because when we turn it over, we're going to be able to see this side, and if we see that mark, I'll just put a, where is it here? Okay, there it is, okay. So easy to catch those tips there if you're not paying attention. Now that's where the bottom is, so you want to cut it, oh, I broke the thing off of there. So then you could put another line out here, and you can just judge when you go to the other side. You could actually use this too, and to figure out how far you want to lay this bottom down. So the next big step is, wow, how are we going to mount this thing? Now technically, I guess excuse me, if you had a chuck with pin jaws that stick way out, you could go into that hole and grip it there. I don't have that, and probably most of you don't either. So I'll get set up here to show you how we're going to mount this. This is what it looks like now, the bottom with that. Now we got to lay this whole surface off here. So we got to mount this side onto the chuck, onto the headstock. So we got to make a special thing for that. Okay, here's the project off the lathe. It actually doesn't take a lot of time. The sanding takes quite a bit of time, and being that it's you're not the grain, sometimes your end grain, side grain, different grains, it's hard to get a smooth finish before you start your sanding process there, but it goes quite easily. So now we're ready to do the bottom here, and so that means we've got to mount that we have to mount that. And we don't want to mar the surface up. Now, as I mentioned before, maybe somebody with pin jaws, you could go in there, and if you're really careful, you could probably do it like that. And you may not even want to make it. You just might want to make a smooth bowl. The online demonstration that I saw, that's what they did. They just did a smooth bowl there, actually on a lot smaller piece. It would have been better if I'd have did a smaller piece. It would go quicker. But this makes a nice size. Anyway, so we've got to put that onto something. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue it to a faceplate. And we have to curve the faceplate to match the curve on here. And I highly advise to make it as close to as fit as possible. The online one that I saw, the fella just used one that he had, and it didn't quite match, so he had to use quite a bit of glue. But I'm going to try to use it, put it on, and have just a small amount of glue. So what I've got here is the one that I've used before. And you can see the glue on there. And this is going to go on here before. Now, if you could see here, there's a huge gap in here because the one that I did before had a much steeper thing. So we want to shape this to this shape, and that makes it a lot easier. So what I've got here is a contour gauge. Okay, I moved over here because it's a lot easier. It's supported. I might jig around. This one, the last one I did was this one, and this contour gauge matches that shape there. And this one here, and that is a lot different. So with this contour gauge, you just have to put it on your project and push it down, and then push all these little fingers down. I think you can see that. Okay, the process. Okay. And what makes it nice with this T-light idea is it matches the, it indexes into the hole, so it's easy to, okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so there's my contour that I want to make that other one is, and I make it according to this size, so they match. These are quite inexpensive. You can buy them on various places, and they work well for different things. So I'm just going to use this gauge now and lay this to match that. It'll just take me a little bit there. No need you watching me do that. I'll just go ahead and do that and have it all ready. Okay, I've got that so it matches my curve with my gauge there. And you also good to take the piece that you're going to put on there, put it on there, check for cracks all around the edges there, and we're ready to put it on. Okay, so our next thing is our hot glue. So we'll get that set up. I'm going to move this over to the metal lathe because that is perfectly lined up, where on my homemade lathe here, my tailstock is not quite perfect, so it'll do a better job there because I want those edges to be equal. I don't want it to be just a slight bit off. Okay, here's the setup here. I've using this chuck on that one that has the 1-inch thread. Now you may not have that, but if you didn't, you could just use the tailstock and just push it up against there. So this setup here is nicely lined up, so that will just go on there lickety-poo, and it'll be glued on there. So I'm just waiting for the thing to get up. So I'll just set that back there, and we'll test out the glue gun here in a sec. My glue gun heated up. I didn't have the electricity turned on to it the first time, so I had to wait a little longer, so I did some cleanup. But anyway, now, when we put the glue on here, you could put it all on this surface and glue it onto there, and wow, that would be really strong. But I found that it actually works quite well. long as you're a little careful when you're lathing, it's on there solid. So what we're going to do is we're going to put glue basically just around a narrower strip just around the outside. And we want to be in this section of here because I've got a different way of taking this off. So that's important. Don't put glue all the way to the center and all over the place there. So we'll just see if I can do this. Okay, there we go. I'm using the larger one there, so just you wiggle around, put a little bit more than just a narrow stretch there, but keep it out towards the outside edge there. I'm actually getting a little too much here. And just move that around, come back to the beginning there, okay? But notice it's not in the middle there. Now I'm just going to slide this up, squish, flip, and tighten that up and put a little pressure on there. Okay, I've got it mounted on the lathe here, and this is a step that's fairly important here, I think. And tighten that. I'm going to use a wrench here, and I'm tightening that faceplate on there fairly tight. You just spin it on and then you shut it off, and the centrifugal force tends to undo it, and I don't want that to happen. So so now we're going to get set up here and ready to lathe here. You can take that and pull on it quite strong back and forth, and check for your glue bond there. So safety shield for sure. We still got the potential of that becoming a missile, and I'm going to use gloves here. I don't want my fingers to get nicked or banged if that thing would come off. You know, we glued it on. I've never had a trouble, but you never know. You could get a catch or something like that, but none of you get catches, so I guess. So I'll just lathe a little bit here, and then I'll work it up to the next step. I quickly laid that down, took another cut off of here. These edges all look perfectly good. Now, how deep should we go here so we don't cut through that thing? That's where we're going to use this little gauge thing that I made. You won't be able to see exactly how I do this, but it's very simple actually. I'm just going to I've laid that down to a certain, I can put that, and just hold it, and then I can bring it to the outside, keeping that flat on there. I can see where I'm at there. So I'm out, I'd say a good 1/4 of an inch before I get to that line that we put on there. Or I can do it this way too. I can put this on here first, for the depth I want, and then I can come over here and I can see, I have to take off a good 1/8 of an inch, and that'll give me about an 1/8 before I get to the bottom of that hole. So simple little gauge like this. I use just the scrap piece. It's a little bigger than I need, and this actually could be a little longer too, that little bend there. And if you have a dirt bike, just use an old spoke. I had to replace the spokes on mine. Okay, so we'll just set that up, and I'll go ahead and finish that down to the depth I want. I can estimate an 1/8 of an inch there quite easily. Well, you can guess what the last step is here, and that's to sand it. I checked it with my little gauge again, and I was pretty close to an 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of the hole there. You could just estimate it and always leave it a little thicker down here than what you think you need, but It's nice, but I thought I'd show you that step because that kind of takes the guesswork out of it. Try to cover all bases here. So I'll just go ahead and finish sanding this, and then we'll take it off. Okay, it's all sanded now. I touched up all this, took the pencil mark off, and got it nicely done there. So it's ready to come off. This method, this bucket method of dust collection really works well, and especially on bowls. You can do a large bowl on here because it goes down inside here, and it just seems like when you have this pipe in here, it captures the dust all the way around. Sometimes if you just have a pipe, it shoots by the pipe or the whatever you have there, but this just seems to just bring the air all down around in there, and it works fine. And it's so easy to set up because you just stick your pipe in and you just put it in and out, and that's no fuss, no muss, and you don't have pipes and stuff and around it there. I found that to be the best system. I had another system that's even better than that, but it takes more setup. So we're ready to take that off, I guess, eh? Okay. So there's several methods to take that off, and I've come up with this method because it's what I had. When I saw the online demonstration, what they do is they take acetone or lacquer thinner or something supposed to react with the glue, and you paint it on and dab it on, and it's dripping down, and it stinks and it smells and all the other things that go with it. But I thought, well, why do that and get all that smell and flammable material? You put it was hot when you put it on, right? You used a hot glue gun, so why not heat it to take it off? So I have a heat gun here, just electric heat gun, and I'm just going to heat that and until it gets hot enough that you can pull it off. So it'll take me a little longer than I want to do it, but and that's the reason for putting the glue just around the outside edge here, not having excess. I probably didn't need as much glue as I had. You want to be careful, and you don't want it to fall off, so you always put enough, but maybe less is better in this situation. I just got to be brave and experiment it on other ones there. So just get your glue gun hot and go along and start warming it up. You might want to warm up the glue block too, the block behind it there, somewhat too. Okay, I'll go ahead and keep doing that. When it gets close, I'll turn it on again. What I've done here is I added a glove. You want a leather glove here, and because that's quite hot there, and then I just pry up and it comes right off. Already taken there, but that was stuck on really good, and you can see there's only a small amount around the outside edge there. There you can see that where the glue was there, a small amount on the outside. And it came off a lot easier. Some of the ones I've had where I've put more glue on there, I've had to do a lot of heating, and I actually got it close enough to the project where it actually started to discolor it. Now, it's still nice and warm there. So the glue, if this is sanded smooth enough, the glue will pop right off of that, and you have just basically nothing. I see a little bit right here, and I can just take my thumb and work that off. I don't have a lot of glue all over the edges and stuff. Some people fill the glue in all the way up against here, but that's what I call overkill. I found that if you match up the surfaces, use a very small amount of glue, it's super good. Okay, so that's our project. We can just sand this a little bit and get that cleaned up there, but these edges here, I need to move this back here. These edges here need to be sanded now, and I'll show you how I do those before, and then we'll just, and then I'll have it all done. I'm going to sand up the edges on a belt sander. You could do it with a block of wood, and just by hand would work fine. But I've got these sanders that I made. I made these sanders here to mount on the wood lathe. And if you go back in the videos, you'll see how to make that. They super easy to make, and they work fantastic. You might want to make one of those. Somebody's number of people have made them. The tracking is very easy too. If I could see my thing here to track this, I'd track it over a little farther, but it still will work. Okay, so we'll just and that way we can get our edges done up nice and smooth there. Yeah, I made one of these here for the metal wood lathe, and that when I'm doing other stuff, I'm not using the wood lathe, so it works on there fantastic. And then I made a second one for a demo, and if you go back into my videos, you'll find how to make these things. So I mounted this one here onto a motor, and then I was working on stuff, and I wanted to find one here and a coarse one there. It's quite easy to change it, but so I just put a little coupler on here, stuck it together, and now it runs both of them at the same time. So it's just a matter of probably $15, $20 to make one of these things. So works good. Of course, on this one you have the motor and stuff like that, but I just scrounged up the motor and it didn't cost anything either. So I'll just go ahead and finish this, and then we'll sit down at the table and have the last word. Well, thanks for sticking with me to the end of this project. I'm not sure how long this video is. I'll have to edit it tonight. But there's my completed project. Even though it's upside down to what I had originally thought, but it still came out just fine. The only thing that I didn't do is, and I didn't do it on this one, the bottom of that hole from the Forester bit gets quite rough because the way the grain is there. And you can take a lathe bit, if you remember, before you take it off on that stage 2 lathe tool and just smooth up the bottom of that. But if you put something in there, you don't really need it anyway, so it's not drastic. And these are just ready for finish now. This is the one project that you may say, oh, it looks kind of difficult. I don't think I'll try that, but give it a shot. I've gone through the basic things there and give you a lot of instructions to come out with a good project the very first time. Some crucial things to do there to make it easy. And you'll enjoy it. This is the one project that I saw online that I've clammed onto and made a number of them. I've given some away, and I'm still experimenting, trying to perfect it and do it quickly and easily, and I plan to make some of these for Christmas gifts. People really scratched their head and said, how did you do that? That looks impossible. Some people said, oh, you just did a bowl and then cut the corners off. No, I didn't do a bowl and cut the corners off, as you can see there. And and try different colors on them. Some of them I've put a glitter in here, put a translucent paint and then a glitter. You could do Sojana iridescent paints with different colors and designs there. That would look really cool too, but I'll get to that one of these days. So anyway, and yeah, this is the fire type, but I don't know if it's that safe, but I was thinking of the electronic type that you could just put in there and it would probably work, look quite nice. So I'll just turn the light off here and so you can see what it looks like. So that's quite pretty. Now I'll just see if I can take this out without burning myself. And okay, this is one that with a deeper dip there, it all shines on those things and gives a really nice glow there. I'll just turn that to the side there and you can see that a little better there. Okay. Oops, I drained some of my wax came out when I tipped it over there, so that's why it's not as bright as it was. So thanks for watching, and my next video, you know, I was thinking of that hole saw idea that I had there, using the hole saw to drive that, and still like that idea. So I think I come up with another idea where I can actually adapt that to something that you could do just about as easy as that one with the body filler in there, that three-cornered drive system that I did in the first video there. So I've got an idea and I think I can do it just as easy, if probably not a little faster, and you could use hole saws on that too. So I'm going to try that the next day or so here. And I'll put that up as a part 3. So stay tuned, subscribe, and lots of good things coming up. Thanks for watching.